Charlie is a 65-year-old female with stage 3 Parkinson's based on the H&Y scale. As she performs a sit-to-stand transfer, she displays typical rigidity as well as an inability to initiate the task. Multiple tries are needed in order to perform the transfer, and a momentum strategy is used as opposed to using a strength to stand up. From the side, you can see she does not bring her feet fully under her body as she rocks back and forth to initiate the movement. Upon standing, she is unable to stand completely upright due to her rigidity, and she requires a step to maintain balance. In addition, she is unable to stop the movement on command and therefore must continue moving forward. Here we see the flexion momentum stage, the momentum transfer phase, the extension phase, and finally the stabilization phase. Brian, Charlie's physical therapist, also noticed her inability to initiate movement and use a momentum strategy when performing this task. His first treatment approach utilizes a Frenkel strategy to help Charlie slow down and perform the task with 3 steps. The first step is to bring her feet back as far as she can. The next step is to bring her chest forward over her knees by bending at the hips. And lastly, she is to stand erect. She is then required to perform them backwards. As she learns the steps, Brian asks Charlie to repeat each step aloud so that she can hear each command she is to perform. The auditory input produces a rhythm that allows the patient to more easily perform the task. As Charlie gets better at the task, Brian is able to lower the table until she can perform the task at chair height. The next treatment involves a weighted vest, or in this case, 2 book bags worn in the front and in the back with light weights to increase proprioceptive feedback to the patient. As you can see, Brian is again using the Frankel's exercises previously described, and this time they are also using it from a high surface to make the exercise easier. The patient performs the exercise a few times to get used to the increased resistance due to the book bags, and when the patient can perform the task with little or no help from the therapist, Brian lowers the plinth to make the task a little more difficult for the patient. After the table is set, the patient uses Frankel's technique again to control the speed of the task and to provide the auditory feedback. Charlie's gait is typical of a Parkinson's patient. She has some difficulty initiating the movement and has a flexed posture with rigidity in her upper and lower extremities. Her feet shuffle across the floor since she is unable to lift her feet completely up off the floor, and upon turning, she has some freezing. From the side, you can see that Charlie's feet never actually leave the ground and that her stride length is greatly reduced. You can also see that she does not have a heel strike, instead, she has foot flat. These gait abnormalities increase Charlie's risk of falls in her home and must be treated. Here we can easily see her foot flat at initial contact, her loading response, her mid stance, her terminal stance and pre-swing, her initial swing, her foot in mid-swing, and finally her terminal swing. Brian identified the patient's shuffling gait and decreased step length as one of the major impairments in the patient's gait. He decided to use an intensive treadmill training program to attempt to improve the gait of the patient. The session is 30 minutes long and the treadmill walking speed was set to 80% of the patient's normal walking speed. And later, it is increased to 90% of her walking speed. Notice the visual marks that were placed on the belt of the treadmill to help the patient improve step length, and as the treatment progresses, the patient is encouraged to not look down while walking, and is instead asked to maintain an upright posture. Brian also encouraged Charlie to take part in a group exercise program. The program is focused around a complex environment, and in this case was an obstacle course. The obstacle course required Charlie to walk sideways, step onto a step, onto compliant surfaces, rolling across a mat, getting up from the floor, walking across a compliant surface once again, and balancing upon each compliant surface as she walks across it. The last thing she does is climb up the stairs. The obstacle course promotes balance training as well as strengthening of the lower extremity.